This is the Resilient and Resourced Educator, and I'm your host, Danette Adams. Today we speak with Derrick and Andrea, a two-educator family and a study in contrasts. Join us for this beautiful conversation about how pandemic teaching is impacting this family who is dedicated to the power of a solid education. Okay, welcome Derrick and Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me here.
No problem.
Okay, so I would like to ask each of you if you would share a memorable or influential teacher or mentor that you've had in your life. So who wants to go first?
My most influential and memorable teacher was Mr. Toes, my high school science teacher and volleyball coach. And so those are, I think he was my memorable teacher because he was very good at two things that I really enjoyed when I was in high school. And I remember he was the one person who said, I thought in high school, I didn't want to be a teacher in high school, but I first thought that it might be cool because if I was going to be one, I'd be like Mr. Toes.
Yeah. And those are two things that you do now, science and you've taught coach volleyball.
Yeah. Volleyball, yeah, and teach science. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Okay, Andrea?
I'm not ever as brief as Derrick. I don't have a memorable teacher per se, but I have three kind of memories that stand out that I think shaped my journey in special education. The first started when I was in grade 1. I was picked as a special friend for a child in my class who had some learning challenges, and kind of throughout my entire elementary school career time as a student, I was always helping special education students. This was in the early 80s when kids were still fully segregated, and I grew up in rural Manitoba, and we had this school that all of the special ed kids went to. So I was involved as a student in that program and loved it. And I had kind of decided that I wanted to pursue a career in recreation, in therapeutic recreation. And in high school, my calculus teacher told me this, or I told him this, and he said, like, that's not a job. I can't believe you're going to do therapeutic recreation. And like, just really kind of, I don't know, belittled my dreams. So like that to myself, I also thought I'm never going to treat someone like that. Like, anybody's dreams are relevant. And then the third experience that I think of is I worked as an educational assistant before I became a teacher, and there was a supply teacher who yelled at the kids whenever they asked me a question because I wasn't the teacher, he was the teacher. And from that, I also thought, man, if I ever pursue teaching, I am going to value and treat my team members as equals and make sure that the kids know that too. So I took a really long journey into getting to education. I worked in a variety of different areas before, and this is kind of like a second or third career for me. And all those little experiences along the way, I think kind of shaped the type of teacher I want to be and the type of leader I want to be as a leader of a team that works in a specialized class.
Right. Yeah. So it shaped your journey, but also, the type of teacher you wanted to be. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so during challenging times, we often have to lead with our strengths. So I want to know what areas of strength that you take with you into your classrooms, whether you're doing face-to-face classrooms right now or virtual. So what strengths do each of you take with you?
My strength is probably more flexibility and be able to roll with whatever is happening generally. I'm not as much of a planner, but more of a get my boots on the ground and let's deal with what happens as things are happening, which is good for what's going on now, I guess. But I am seeing that it is much more difficult than what it usually is when of just kind of being there and trying to make things happen in the moment. It's a little harder in this COVID time?
I'm the opposite. I'm a planner and very detail oriented. And I think that that's, it's a strength right now because in my specialized program with all the COVID protocol, there's like so many things to consider for these special ed students and so many protocols to follow that you have to be organized. Like I have a cleaning schedule for every material in my room. Basically, we've got to think about the way kids move to the bathroom, their safety plans, all of that. So I think paying attention to details is helpful in that. Although I also need to be flexible because my days never go as planned. So it's like balancing the planning and flexibility, I guess.
Right.
Probably we
So
can learn from each other.
when we look conversely, when we switch that around now, so is that what each of you need? So if we look at areas of support you might need during this pandemic school year, what areas where you might need support from other people or resources around you?
Yeah, that's probably it. Like for me, like I've had to do a lot more planning this year because it's kind of known than I usually have before. It's not my strength. I mean, Andrea helps me a lot during the day because I have to, for planning the stuff here at home with our kids and getting to school and all the stuff that used to happen. She's got our visual schedules on the fridge door, so the boys and I know what to do. And at school, I feel, and this sort of things you're stuck in your own cohort in your own room all day. You're in your own little island, so it's so being able to have support of other teachers is difficult now, because you can't really see other teachers as much because we're all in our own little spaces and we're not supposed to really be out as too often. So I wish I could have more support in that sort of way with the rest of my colleagues, actually.
Yeah, I think the support I need is mostly emotional support, dealing with, there's just so much to do now, and I get easily overwhelmed probably because I am so detail focused. I see all the little things that need to be done. And then the stress of COVID, especially I'm working in a class where nobody wears a mask, nobody maintains distance.
Your students.
My students, my staff is great. But I went from being really, really cautious, and we were quite strict throughout this entire 6 months, to being in an environment where that's just not possible. I mean, we wear a lot of PPE and protect ourselves, but my anxiety around that is high. And then also just always kind of, I don't know, keeping it in check and realizing that not everything will get done, and that's okay. So as you can see, we're opposites, but maybe a good balance for each other, because Derrick is really good at keeping me grounded.
Yeah.
And so are the EAs in my classroom, which I'm very lucky. Opposite of Derrick, I have 3 wonderful people in the room with me, so that's helpful in debriefing and getting kind of that emotional support at school, even if I can't socialize so much with the other staff.
That's great. Thank you. So now if you think about a young teacher, this being their first year or their second year and having to face all of these challenges that you as senior teachers are facing now, what advice would you give to a new teacher who is just starting out?
Well, from a Rockaway perspective, I mean, schedules of the schools are different, but I was just thinking that today. Well, it's either, part of me is thinking, I don't know how a first year teacher or teaching a new course, it's tough. Well, maybe, because I feel like there's just less time to do things because you're doing all these other protocols, and the schedules are different, and there is just no time to do anything. Wow. Barely even have lunch in the new protocols. But so I've been teaching the same thing as I have for years, and it's a lot more. I feel like a first year teacher. So I can't, there'd be a ton of work, but maybe it's also because I feel like it should be feeling different. I feel like I should be just rolling with as it should be coming very easily, as it And everything's so much different. So maybe that's why I feel more furious. Maybe I remember as a first year teacher, it was crazy. I did a ton of work all the time. Maybe it wouldn't make a difference now because you're just always doing work. That's what I remember from first. Trying to do the homework a day ahead of the students. Back when Steve Pfister was giving me all his handouts and stuff and teaching me how to teach math at the time. So, but I can see it definitely being a big stress. Very much could be.
Yeah.
I think my advice would be to be gentle with yourself. Like it's hard to be a first year teacher no matter what. It's even harder probably in this. So maybe pick one thing that you want to do really, really well. Like maybe your language program, you're going to focus your energy on that and do a good job at everything else, but realize that everything isn't going to be fabulous. So maybe pick one thing. And then a wise person once told me is that your kids aren't always going to remember what you teach them anyway. They probably won't, especially in my case. They're not going to remember what I teach them, but they're going to remember how we make them feel. And I think that that's important for any teacher, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed with curriculum. The most important thing, and especially now in COVID, is that the students know that they're safe and that they're cared for, and the curriculum comes second. Like, we want them to learn, but first they can't learn if they're not safe and feeling loved. So I don't know, if you've done that, then you've done a good job.
Right. Well, you've already expressed how challenging it is with overwhelm sometimes, not only with protocols, but just emotionally feeling about the safety. So if you're putting those things in place for the students, that is, yes, a very, very important thing, well above curriculum for sure. Yeah. So the last thing I want to ask you, if you want to consider, what do you see going forward? Like, what are your ideas about what the future of education is going to look like post-pandemic? You know, are there some silver linings from this, things we're learning, or are there some great concerns that this might be taking us down a path? What do you think about that?
I think there's some great concerns.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's too many. There might be silver linings from a teaching perspective of just trying something different and changing things up, which forced older teachers who've done things for all like me, it's good to look at things in a different perspective. But I mean, as students, I don't know, everything's just COVID for good reason, for safety's precautions is great, but we're taking away all the things that students enjoy and help in the process of learning, or it's taking away the more natural ways of doing it. So building in inquiry and trial and error when you're sitting at your own desk and it's how interacting with someone else and comparing and sharing things and working. It's from a science perspective, I found is hard. And then we take away their ability to do sports and interact as a team together, and telling kids who haven't seen each other in months when they're hanging out together and you come up and tell them, no, you guys got to stay away from each other. It's hard. It's the actual on the ground nuts and bolts of this is hard. I mean, we're doing it for public safety here, which is what we need to do, but moving forward in the future, man, I hope we can get back to coming together more.
Yeah, awesome.
I don't know, I'm really concerned that this might lead more to the privatization of education, which is maybe ironic since I'm sitting with a private school teacher, but there's a time and a place for private school education. Obviously, we're a household with one public, one private, so we see the benefits of both, but I worry that this is going to turn into a have and the have-nots, and that the public school system is going to keep losing funding because people who can are going to pull out their kids. And then we're seeing in our school board that it's actually a lot of people from lower socioeconomic statuses that are doing online learning for whatever reason. But I worry that without the supports in place, those families might not be able to access everything they need from home. And I'm just concerned that there's going to be a greater divide, and that it's going to take time to even that out again. I really hope that out of this, people realize the benefit of smaller class sizes. I really hope that they realize how well kids were learning when we were doing inquiry-based hands-on activities, and that straight up lecturing isn't as engaging, or like, I hope we learn a lot from this. I'm worried that it's going to create a bigger divide, and I'm worried that it's going to continue to make some of the issues that we're seeing right now around Black Lives Matter even worse, because that population, we're not focusing on what we need to focus on in education right now. Like, this is a time of unrest. We need to be devoting our time to addressing these issues, but instead we're devoting our time to cleaning and keeping people safe, which we need to do, but I'm worried that those things are going to fall by the wayside. So I'm hopeful they don't, but yeah, I'm concerned.
Yeah, so the inequities that are coming up because of this might get set to the side because we're focusing on just getting through the day. And you two,
Exactly.
as a family, you encompass almost everything, public and private, 2 teachers. There's just so much that you're dealing with. So thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. And I know the teachers and parents and families that will be watching this video series will learn from you. So I thank you very much. And I wish you both the best in both of your different schools and in your family as well. So thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks, Annette.